Reflections of a Social Ecologist, the article that's in this section. The first PowerPoint presentation referred to Peter Drucker's embeddedness within the practice of management as liberal. First part then had to do with the introduction to the practice of management as liberal. The second now has to do with Drucker's works. This material has taken me an awful long time to develop, and I've tried to get it into a one presentation. And so I commend it to you. I don't think it's final, but I think it's pretty powerful as gaining an understanding of the sweep of the work, as best as I can understand it, sticking to the facts. Here's another huge term. So far we've defined legitimate authority, and we've talked about, which is where all the morality fits, and we've talked about status and function. We're going to have to say more. The third is continuity and change. A huge, huge topic within Drucker's work. As a matter of fact, these are the three: legitimate authority, status and function, continuity and change. And here his work starts with this trio of philosophers, parliamentarians from Germany, working in the early 19th century, early 1800s. And there were three: Humboldt, Radowitz, and Stahl. Stahl is a big one, but the other two are equally important to his work. Stahl is a big one in the sense that he completed his first monograph in 1932 based on Stahl. So he did more writing on Stahl, but he quit because he had to leave Germany because of the breakdown in continuity, essentially, and we'll get into the story. So Humboldt was the founder of the University of Berlin. He was a leading European statesman during the European Enlightenment that took place. Radowitz was a professional soldier, a statesman, and a confidant of the King of Prussia, which is really Germany, integrating Germany. And then Julius Stahl, Hegel's successor at the University of Berlin. Hegel, a great philosopher, and a constitutional lawyer and a parliamentarian. You can see Drucker, first book on Stahl came out of his background in international law. The trio tried to create a stable society and a stable polity to preserve the traditions of the past and yet make possible change, very rapid change. See, this is what Drucker, building on Schumpeter, but long before Schumpeter, was driven by. How can we, in a society and in society's organizations, maintain continuity with the traditions of the past and yet make change as change occurs? Possibly very rapid change, as we are seeing right now. Drucker, and all this material can be dug out of that article, Reflections of a Social Ecologist. But to a person coming to Drucker's work for the first time, this is an awful lot to swallow, and I'm trying to make it more digestible. This trio built what's called a Reichstag, which is a state of justice consisting of autonomous and a self-governing elite of civil servants and general staff officers who are in full control of the political structure and the military. Okay, so one segment of society in the Reichstag is consists of civil servants and general military officers who are in full control of the political operation, government, and the military sphere. And then of educated people organized around the self-governing university, free liberal thinking, and that led to a liberal culture sphere. And the liberal culture sphere was also included a largely free, unrestricted economy. Okay, so the Reichstag, which was a state of justice, consisted of, in other words, to achieve the Reichstag, you needed an autonomous and self-governing elite of civil servants and general staff officers that are in charge of the political military, and then of educated people organized around the liberal sphere, universities, and the economy. So you have the institutions here that can provide for continuity with the past and change. The liberal self-governing ones provide for change. Excuse me. This trio, which developed the Reichstag and which developed these institutions under a monarch, okay, who was in control of these four: economy, universities, political structure, government, and the military. It's basically the only political theory to originate on the continent of Europe in modern time, at least until Karl Marx developed Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto and what's become known as communism. So the trio created this political structure that survived for almost 100 years, until the First World War. Now the interesting thing here, and I kept thinking of this before I knew Drucker really well, I knew his work, come to know his work. Now, what these men did had already been done by the founders of America. I kept asking myself, just as Drucker did, they didn't realize that what they were trying to do already was accomplished in the United States. And I thought perhaps maybe they knew. But the United States was going through a civil war about that time. So maybe they didn't think that the Constitution would survive. I don't know. But clearly what they were trying to do had been done. And there you can begin to see the link between Germany, Austria, and the United States for Drucker. Okay. The United States Constitution was first and alone among written constitutions to contain explicit provision for change. It probably explains more than anything else why, alone of all written constitutions, the American Constitution is still important and a living document. The Federalist Papers, 89 papers defending the Constitution before it was ratified, are an incredible education and management. And perhaps what Drucker thought, one of the most prominent ideas to emanate from the United States. Why? Because it contains explicit provision for change and as well as continuity. They didn't realize the importance of the Supreme Court, which is really an institution that conserves the past and its laws, and it changes. It has an amendment process and an interpretation process, bringing the original interpretation to bear on current problem. So the Supreme Court is an institution of conservatism and continuity. That's one pole. They're the same. conservation, continuity, as well as innovation and change. That's the other pole. Two poles on a continuum. And the Supreme Court tries to balance both.